My lovesick younger sister, who dropped out of college in her second year to get married, was found during an prenatal checkup to be carrying a super male fetus. Our whole family was frantic, urging her to have an induction as soon as possible. After all, this would be a lifelong burden for both the child and the entire family, but she collapsed on the floor, crying, "If I abort this, my mother-in-law will skin me alive. She keeps talking about wanting a big grandson, and says if this pregnancy still doesn't work out, Chen will force me to divorce." Then she turned around and exaggerated everything to her in-laws, saying our whole family thought the baby was unhealthy and was forcing her to kill a life that very day. Her mother-in-law showed up at our door with a broom in hand, pointing at my mother's nose and cursing, "You heartless lot. My eldest grandson was born to carry on our family line. Even if he has a few problems, he's still the Chen family's blood. You just can't stand to see us doing well and want to cut off our future." My brother-in-law also shouted with red eyes, "Whoever dares lay a finger on my son, I'll fight them to the death." My mother already had heart disease, and that round of abuse enraged her so much that she went into cardiac arrest on the spot. In a panic, my father rushed her to the hospital. While crossing the road, he failed to notice a truck and was hit. Both of them died on the spot. My younger sister stood by the roadside and actually said to her mother-in-law, "Mom, look, karma has come, hasn't it? Who told them to try to harm my son?" I knelt before my parents' memorial altar, and in my ears rang my sister Lu Yulan's shrill voice, "See, this is karma. Who told them to try to harm my son?" I was angered to death, and when I opened my eyes again, I found myself sitting at the dining table at home. "Shwani, what are you daydreaming about?" My mother's voice came from beside me. I suddenly looked up and saw my parents sitting perfectly fine across from me. The calendar on the wall showed, March 15th, 2023, a rebirth. "We've been reborn." Yulan just called and said she'd be back later. Dad put down his chopsticks, his expression grave. She said the prenatal checkup showed the baby might have a problem. My heart was pounding like a drum. Wasn't this the starting point of the tragedy from my past life? Mom sighed. This child is only 19, refusing to go to college just to get married, and now, the doorbell rang. I rushed to open the door. Lu Yulan stood at the entrance, her eyes red and swollen. "Mom, Dad, brother, the doctor said the baby might have super male syndrome." The opening lines were exactly the same as in my previous life. She sobbed, "If I do it, my mother-in-law will skin me alive." She said if this pregnancy doesn't work out, she'll make Chen divorce me. In my previous life, we started persuading her to have an abortion from here, and then my parents exchanged a look, and I suddenly understood. They had been reborn too. Mom suddenly smiled. "Keep it, of course we have to keep it, Dad," and I instantly understood and nodded along. My younger sister froze. "You're not going to talk me into aborting it? This is the golden grandson your in-laws have been hoping and waiting for, day and night." I forced out a sincere smile. "If you don't give birth to him, can you face the Chen family's ancestors?" Dad patted his younger sister's shoulder. "We've come around. A child is a life. How could we give up on it so casually?" Mom gently stroked her younger sister's hair. "Your mother-in-law is right. This is a precious child who will carry on the family line." Tears of joy streamed down my younger sister's face. "You finally understand. I'll tell Chen and my mother-in-law right away." She happily rushed off to make the call. The three of us exchanged glances, our eyes equally cold. In our previous life, they killed my parents. In this life, we were going to watch them suffer the consequences of their own evil deeds. "Let's make her have the child first," I said in a low voice. When they're tormented to the point of wishing they were dead by that child, Mom gently pressed a hand to her chest, where a heart condition had taken her life in our previous life. "I want to watch that old hag kneel and beg us for help." Dad sneered. "This time, our whole family must properly support her decision." After finishing the call, my younger sister came back beaming with happiness. "Mom said she's treating you all to dinner this weekend. She said you've finally come to your senses." "Of course we're going," I said with a bright smile. "We need to properly discuss how to serve the little darling of the Chen family. In my past life, you killed my parents. In this lifetime, I want to watch your whole family be dragged to death by that child." I quietly put the recorder in my pocket and pressed the switch. My younger sister's mother-in-law, old Madame Chen, sat on my family's sofa, spittle flying as she said, "Not to be rude, but hospitals nowadays only know how to scare people. What do you mean by hypermale or not? My grandson is perfectly healthy. In my last life, she used that exact same line." My mother's hand, holding the teacup, trembled slightly. I knew she was holding back. Mother-in-law is right, Dad suddenly said with a smile in agreement. These days, doctors just love to exaggerate. I nearly choked on my water in my last life. Dad had been the first to jump up and object, and now he was actually going along with old Madam Chen. Mother immediately understood. Yes, Yulan's pregnancy definitely looks like a boy, just look at how pointed her belly is. My sister proudly stroked her still flat stomach. My mother-in-law says, sour for a son, spicy for a daughter, and I've been craving sour foods lately. Old Mrs. Chen nodded with satisfaction. Our Chen family has had only one male heir for 5 generations. This baby must be a boy. I nearly burst out laughing. 5 generations of single inheritance. I checked in my previous life. Chen Yichen's father had 5 brothers, and by the time it got to him, it became single inheritance. Mom, I want strawberries, my younger sister suddenly said. Just as Mom was about to get up, old Madam Chen snorted. You can't indulge a pregnant woman. The more you indulge her, the more pretentious she gets. My younger sister immediately changed her tune. I won't eat it. I stared at my sister, who was looking at her mother-in-law with a flattering gaze. Her eyes filled with humility. Where had that stubborn girl from the past, who had broken with her entire family for love, gone? By the way, old Mrs. Chen suddenly turned to my parents. Yulan is now carrying the Chen family's golden grandson. As the maternal grandparents, shouldn't you show some appreciation? Here it comes. Last time it was money. This time, who knows what they want? Mom feigned surprise. What do you mean, mother-in-law? We have a rule where we're from, Mrs. Chen said, narrowing her eyes. If a daughter is pregnant, her natal family has to pay to hire a nanny. I almost crushed the teacup in my hand. Did they ask for the money after the wedding last time? This time, it came early, Dad asked with a chuckle. Of course. How much do you want? 5,000 a month, paid for a year in advance. Old Mrs. Chen held up 5 fingers. This is because I'm taking care of my eldest grandson. 60,000, 20,000 more than in her previous life. My younger sister looked at us expectantly, with not a trace of guilt in her eyes. No problem, Mom agreed readily. I'll transfer it to Yulan tomorrow. Old Madam Chen clearly hadn't expected it to go so smoothly. Her eyes darted around. Also, the place Yulan is living in now is too small. My heart skipped a beat. In my previous life, they only started eyeing my family's house half a year after they got married. Mom, my younger sister suddenly cut in. Did Grandma mean, could we transfer the title of our little apartment to me? The air froze. That apartment was left by my grandparents, and it's worth at least 2 million, of course, Dad said without changing expression, but we have to wait until the child is born. How nice it would be to transfer it to our grandson. Old Madam Chen's eyes lit up. Yes, 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 just transfer it directly to the child. I sneered inwardly. I know exactly what they're up to. If a minor's property is managed by a guardian, won't it still end up in the Chen family's hands in the end? Yulan, Mom suddenly clutched her chest. I'm not feeling too well. In my previous life, Mom was angered into having heart disease. I looked at her nervously, only to see her secretly wink at me, acting. My sister frowned. Mom, are you pretending to be sick again? Grandma is talking about something serious. My blood froze instantly. Mom's face really started to turn pale this time. It wasn't fake. I'll go get the medicine. Dad rushed into the bedroom. Old lady Chen curled her lip. These old ladies nowadays, always playing sick at the slightest thing to win sympathy. My younger sister even nodded in agreement. My mom is just like that. Anytime something doesn't go her way, she gets sick. I clenched my fists so tightly that my nails dug into my flesh. After taking the medicine, Mom came around and gave a weak smile. I'm old now, no longer of much use. Please take good care of yourself, mother-in-law, old Madam Chen said as she stood up. Don't let it be that by the time your grandson is born, you've already fallen ill. After they left, Mom collapsed onto the sofa, tears streaming down her face. She actually said I was faking illness. Mom's voice trembled. My daughter that I raised for 20 years, Dad, with a dark expression, called the lawyer. Old Zheng, put that apartment under my name up for sale. I took out the voice recorder. From today on, every word they say, I'll record. The next day, my younger sister came back. Alone. Me, Dad. My mother-in-law said we need to handle the apartment matter as soon as possible, she said with sparkling eyes. We can pay less in taxes. I sneered. Your mother-in-law knows the law quite well. Yichen studied law, my sister said proudly. He said he can help us with the paperwork. Of course, in my past life, Chin used legal loopholes to swindle a lot of money from us. Take your time, Dad said with a smile, we'll talk about it after you've given birth. My younger sister pouted. Grandma says you just don't want to give it, Yulon. Mom suddenly raised her voice. Mom is asking you, if one day Grandma and Mom fell into the water at the same time, who would you save? My younger sister froze. Mom, why are you asking that? Answer me. Of course it's mother-in-law, the younger sister said without hesitation. She's my son's grandmother. Mom laughed, her eyes filled with despair. Good, very good, the younger sister left in bafflement. I turned on the computer and created a folder named Revenge, the first file, recording 20230316. Dad began organizing the property deeds and bank books. Mom locked the valuable jewelry in the safe. We are all waiting for that child to be born, waiting for them to reap what they sow, waiting for karma to come. Chen set the teacup heavily on the coffee table. Uncle, Auntie, for Yulon and me's wedding, I hope we can keep it simple. I looked up at him. In my previous life, this same face had said retribution in front of my parents' memorial hall. How simple? Dad asked in a calm tone. Let's waive the bride price, Chen said, adjusting his glasses. New customs are being encouraged now. Mom's chopsticks paused in her hand. In their previous life, they had asked for a bride price of 180,000, and also, Chen continued, Yulon is pregnant, so we don't need a wedding car or anything, but after the wedding, we'll need a car for daily use. I almost laughed out loud. So you want us to include a car as part of the dowry? My sister nodded from the side. Chen is right, a betrothal gift is too tacky. It is tacky indeed. I picked up the thread. But as for the dowry car, what brand do you want? Chen's eyes lit up. An Audi A4 will do, it has good safety features, a car worth more than 300,000 yuan. And he said it like he was buying vegetables. No problem, Dad agreed readily, let's just treat it as a gift for our future grandchild. My younger sister happily hugged Chen. My parents are the best. Chen smiled smugly, and that smile made me want to punch him. By the way, he suddenly remembered something. The wedding may be kept simple, but the hotel should still be a better one. After all, our Chen family has a reputation locally. How about the Four Seasons Hotel? Mom said with a smile. I know their manager. In my previous life, they chose a small restaurant and even made us pay for it. Chen's eyes lit up even more. That would be ideal. After they left, Mom immediately called. Manager Lee, yes, I want to book the cheapest banquet hall. What date? The sooner, the better. Dad then contacted the dealership. The cheapest Audi A4, as long as it runs. No options. I opened my computer and created a new document in the Revenge folder. Wedding humiliation plan. 3 days later, the family dinner. I deliberately sat next to my eldest uncle. He was famous in the family for being a big mouth. Uncle, I said, deliberately raising my voice, Yulon has really married into a good family. The Chen family has had a single heir for 5 generations, and there's a throne to inherit. As expected, my uncle perked up. What century are we in? Who still talks like that? They're different, I said, pretending to be envious. Chen said their family line absolutely can't be broken. Everyone at the table burst out laughing. Yulon is carrying the emperor's grandson. I went on to fan the flames, the one who'll inherit the throne in the future. When my younger sister heard this at the table next to us, she actually raised her chin smugly. Chen's expression was rather unpleasant, but for the sake of appearances, he said nothing. 3 days later, Mom received a call from my younger sister. Mom, Grandma said the hospital made a mistake, my younger sister said through tears. She took me to the provincial capital for a checkup, and the doctor said the baby is perfectly healthy. My heart gave a sudden jolt. In my previous life, it had been just like this. They refused to believe the medical diagnosis no matter what. That's good, my mother said in a relaxed tone. When did you get checked? Yesterday, my younger sister stammered. The test report is with mom-in-law. I immediately understood that she hadn't gone to the provincial capital at all. Yulon, I grabbed the phone. Send me the last test report. I'll find a specialist to ask. My mother-in-law said that kind of unlucky thing was thrown away long ago. My younger sister suddenly became agitated. You just can't stand seeing me do well. The call ended. I looked at my parents. They even destroyed the test results. Dad sneered. Ignorance. Mom took out her phone. I've made an appointment with Director Lin at the private hospital. I'll take Yulon there next week. She won't go. I said, old Mrs. Chen won't allow it. She has no choice. Mom said with a cold look in her eyes. I'll tell her that Director Lin is my classmate and can secretly check the gender. Sure enough, as soon as my sister heard that the gender could be checked, she agreed immediately. On the day of the examination, old Madam Chen insisted on coming along. Director Lin, her mother said, giving her a look. My daughter just wants to know whether it's a boy or a girl. Director Lin understood. Then I'll do a full checkup while I'm at it. Old Madam Chen was displeased. No need. We just want to know the sex of the baby, Mom, her younger sister said, holding her back. A full examination would be good too. In the ultrasound room, Director Lin's brows furrowed tighter and tighter. The fetus does indeed show abnormalities, she said softly. I recommend an amniocentesis to confirm the diagnosis. Mrs. Chen rushed in. Nonsense, my grandson is perfectly healthy, Director Lin said gravely. According to the ultrasound, the fetus's skull shape is abnormal, and the spine is developing. Shut up, old Mrs. Chen grabbed her sister from the bed. We're leaving. What kind of lousy hospital is this? As her sister was dragged out, she looked back at us, her eyes full of resentment, as if we were the ones who had harmed her child. Back home, Dad started organizing the safe, property deed, bank book, household register. He checked them off one by one. We'll open a new bank account tomorrow. Mom emptied the contents of the jewelry box into her bag. We can't leave these at home anymore. I turned on the computer and logged into my sister's cloud drive. The password was her birthday, unchanged from the previous life. It was all chat records between her and Chen Chen. I took screenshots and saved them one by one. The relatives in the Chen family are so annoying, always asking whether it's a boy or a girl. My mom said if it's a girl, she should have it aborted. Are your parents still thinking of making you get an abortion? They're so cruel. My mother-in-law said that once the baby is born, your parents will have to pay for a school district apartment. The last one was sent last night. Chen, if my parents don't agree to transfer the apartment, we'll threaten them with divorce. They'll definitely give in. I turned off the computer, a tightness pressing in my chest. In my previous life, we had bared our hearts and done everything for her good, and this was what we got in return. The doorbell rang. My younger sister stood at the door, her eyes swollen and red. Mom, Dad, mother-in-law said, what did you say, Mom? Asked calmly. She said if you really cared about me, you'd transfer the apartment to me first. My younger sister sniffled. That way I'll have some standing in the Chen family. Dad laughed. Tell your mother-in-law that on the day the child is born, the house will be transferred immediately. My younger sister looked up in surprise. Really? Dad patted her head. When have I ever lied to you? Of course, he never has, because that apartment will be sold tomorrow. Mom, I want to give birth at a public hospital, my sister said, touching her already prominent belly, her tone resolute. I set down my chopsticks and exchanged a glance with my parents. In my previous life, she gave birth at a private hospital and nearly died from massive bleeding. At public hospitals there are too many people and it's noisy, Mom said, scooping a bowl of soup and pushing it toward my younger sister. My classmate is the head of obstetrics at United Family, and the environment is much better. My younger sister's eyes lit up, then dimmed again. But mother-in-law said, is your mother-in-law worried about the cost? Dad interrupted her. Don't worry, we'll cover everything. I sneered inwardly. In my previous life, they insisted on going to the most expensive private hospital, then made us pay for it. It's not about the money. My sister bit her lip. Mom said public hospitals are more clean. Clean. I almost spat out my food, Mom said without changing her expression. United Family Hospital has sterile delivery rooms, and celebrities all give birth there. Really? My sister became interested. Which celebrities? I immediately took out my phone and searched for a few names. Look, this one, and this one. My sister's eyes grew wider and wider. And what's more, Mom lowered her voice, I can secretly tell you whether it's a boy or a girl. This bait was too effective. Less than 2 hours after my sister returned home, she called, Mom. Grandma agreed. After hanging up the phone, Mom immediately contacted her so-called classmate, Director Lin. It's me, she said calmly. Yes, my daughter, please prepare 2 reports when the time comes. 2 reports, one for the Chen family, one for us. The next day, I went to United Family Healthcare. I didn't go to the obstetrics department, but to the emergency department. Hello, I'm looking for Nurse Bai, I said to the front desk. In my past life, when my mother was rushed to the hospital for severe hemorrhaging, it was this Nurse Bai who secretly told me that the Chen family had tried to stop them from giving blood transfusions. saying they were too expensive. A nurse wearing glasses came over. I'm Bai Jing. And you are, Lu Xuani. I extended my hand. I'd like to inquire about a home maternity care package. Bai Jing took me to the lounge area. Actually, I came to thank you. I lowered my voice. Though you might not remember, she looked bewildered. Last year, when my friend's mother had a heart attack and was rushed to the hospital. You helped handle it in time. I made up a story. Bai Jing smiled. That's my job. I'd like to treat you to a meal to express my thanks. I insisted. Half an hour later, we sat down at a restaurant near the hospital. Actually, I got straight to the point. My sister is about to give birth at your hospital soon. Bai Jing nodded. Congratulations. Her in-laws are a bit troublesome, I said with a bitter smile. They might try to interfere with the treatment. Bai Jing's expression turned serious. Medical decision-making authority lies with immediate family. If they obstruct necessary treatment, I handed over a card. Please contact me immediately. The password is 6/8. Bai Jing pushed the card back. This is against regulations. It's not a bribe, I explained. It's emergency backup funds, in case they refuse to pay. She hesitated. My sister is only 19. My voice trembled. Her in-laws are so desperate for a grandson that they don't care if she lives or dies. Bai Jing finally accepted the card. I'll keep an eye out, but I can't make any promises. That was enough. On the way home, my sister called. Bro, mother-in-law says she wants to throw me a baby shower. I put the phone on speaker so my parents could hear too. Where are you having it? Mom asked. At the Shangri-La. My sister's voice was shrill and piercing. Mother-in-law said she can't let me be wronged. In their previous life, they held it at a small restaurant downstairs in the neighborhood complex, and even made us pay for it. Really generous, I said sarcastically. Looks like the Chen family really values you. Of course, my younger sister said smugly. Mother-in-law said I'm the great benefactor of the Chen family. Mom suddenly asked, Yulan, can you let me see the report from your last prenatal checkup? There was silence on the other end of the line for a few seconds. Grandma put them away, my younger sister said defensively. She said these things are bad luck. Mom is just worried about you, I interjected. By the way, have you finished designing your wedding invitations? My younger sister was immediately distracted. Grandma said they should be gold-foiled, and blessed with a baby boy should be printed on them. Wedding invitations printed with blessed with a precious son. I held back my laughter. Should we print the ultrasound photo on them too? Sure. My younger sister actually took it seriously. I'll tell my mother-in-law right away. After the call ended, Dad suddenly got up and went to the study. A few minutes later, he came out holding a document envelope. I got in touch with my cousin back home. Mom took the envelope. He agreed. Yeah, Dad nodded. He has an empty house in Hainan, and we can move in any time. My heart jolted. In his previous life, before Dad had the accident, he once said he would take Mom to Hainan to retire. Don't rush, Dad said with a cold look in his eyes. The real show is just beginning. The next day was the weekend, and my sister and Chen suddenly showed up at our door. Dad, Mom, my sister shouted as soon as she entered. Mother-in-law says we need to invite 200 people to the baby banquet, and you have to help. 200 people. In my previous life, we only set up 5 tables. No problem, Mom agreed readily. Give me the list, and I'll make the calls. Chen added, all gift money will be kept by my mom. That's the rules. I almost laughed out loud. Of course, Dad nodded, but with the relatives on our side, we may have to collect the gift money ourselves. Chen frowned. That's not apro. After all, we have to give gift money in return. Dad interrupted him. We won't take a single cent from your Chen family. My younger sister chimed in. Dad, the minimum gift money from our relatives should be at least 1,000, right? 1,000. In my previous life, the relatives from our family all gave 200. I told them, I said with a smile. By the way, are the wedding invitations printed? Chen took a card out of his bag. Just got the sample. I took it and looked at it, almost hurting myself trying not to laugh. Below the gold embossed 4 big characters, we are blessed with a baby boy. There was actually a printed ultrasound photo. Very creative. I said solemnly, should we add a line saying, passed down through 5 generations, carrying on the Chen family line? Chen actually considered it seriously. It could be added on the back. His younger sister leaned against his shoulder. Chen said the child should take his grandfather's surname. Chen, shouldn't it? I asked back. No, the younger sister explained, it's that both the first and last names are the same as grandpa's. Chen Zhengwo. This time even Mom couldn't hold back. Who still gives names like that these days? Grandma says it's tradition, the younger sister said dismissively. The eldest son and grandson are supposed to inherit grandpa's name. Dad suddenly asked. What if it's a girl? Impossible, my younger sister and Chinny-chan said in unison. What if it is? I pressed. My younger sister's expression changed. Grandma said, there's no what if. Chinny-chan interrupted coldly. It has to be a boy. His phone suddenly rang. Glancing at the screen, he hurried to the balcony with a panicked look on his face to answer it. His younger sister wanted to follow him, but he stopped her with a glance. I pretended to go to the kitchen for water and caught fragments of the conversation through the gap in the window. No, not now, she's pregnant. The voice was too low, but I was far too familiar with that tone in my previous life and affair. During my younger sister's pregnancy in my previous life, Chinny-chan had at least 3 mistresses. I quietly backed out into the living room. My younger sister was showing off her new bracelet, given by my mother-in-law, she said, shaking the jade bangle on her wrist. She said it's a family heirloom, only for the daughter-in-law. Mom stared at the bangle, and her face suddenly changed. That was my maternal grandmother's dowry left to Mom, and it had suddenly gone missing last month. We exchanged a knowing glance without a word. It's really beautiful. Mom forced a smile. Take good care of it. After my sister left, Mom pulled out a photo from the bottom of the jewelry box. This is the one. In the photo, the inside of the bracelet was engraved with the character Lu. No rush. Dad patted Mom on the shoulder. We'll get it back sooner or later. I turned on the computer and created a new document in the revenge folder. Evidence of Chinny-chan's infidelity. Collect. Save. Wait for that child to be born, waiting for them to reap what they sow. My sister's belly was already too big to hide, but she insisted on wearing a tight dress. Mother-in-law says you can tell it's a boy this way. She proudly puffed out her belly. A pointed belly means it's definitely a son. Mom stared at her belly with a complicated look in her eyes. At this time in our previous life, we were still earnestly trying to persuade her to terminate the pregnancy. Yulan, I put down my phone. Is Chinny-chan still working overtime lately? My younger sister's expression changed. How do you know? Of course I knew. In my previous life at this time, he was fooling around with the company's receptionist. Just a guess, I said nonchalantly. Didn't their law firm just take on a big case? My sister relaxed. Right. My mother-in-law said he's working so hard all for the sake of the children. For the sake of the children. I almost laughed out loud. It was really to avoid you. By the way, my younger sister suddenly remembered something. Mom-in-law said that after I give birth, I'll have to quit my job and stay home to take care of the child. The teacup in my mother's hand paused for a moment. Didn't you say you were going to take the teacher qualification exam? My mother-in-law says a woman should put her family first. The younger sister said nonchalantly, I have to take care of Chen and the baby. Full-time nanny. That was Chen family's true purpose. That's great. Mom forced a smile. Your mother-in-law is really thoughtful. My younger sister nodded smugly. Grandma said I have to learn how to take care of my husband. I have to get up an hour early every morning to make breakfast. As I listened to her recite those house rules one by one, my stomach churned. In my last life, she developed postpartum depression because of these ridiculous rules. Yulan, I interrupted. Are you sure this is the life you want? Of course. My younger sister's eyes lit up. Grandma said this is a woman's good fortune. Good fortune. I looked at my parents. Anger was hidden in their eyes as well. After my sister left, I opened the family WeChat group. The group was all distant relatives, and normally no one said a word. I found that secret recipe for having a boy in my favorites and tapped share. I heard this is especially effective, so I'm sharing it with everyone. It was an utterly absurd article, claiming that if a pregnant woman ate a pound of loaches every day, she could guarantee giving birth to a boy 3 minutes later. My sister privately messaged me, Bro, Mom wants to know if this remedy is reliable. Trying not to laugh, I replied, it's super effective. My colleague's cousin took it for 3 months straight and gave birth to twin boys. Half an hour later, my sister sent a photo. Granny Chen was squatting in front of a seafood stall at the market, pointing at the loaches in the basin. I immediately took a screenshot, saved it, and sent it to the family group chat. Dad sent a thumbs up emoji. Mom replied with a face covering its mouth while laughing. The taste of revenge, even if it's just a tiny bit, is so sweet it's addictive. The next day, my sister called, her voice choked with tears. Bro, I have diarrhea. What's wrong? I pretended not to know. My mother-in-law forced me to eat a live loach, she sobbed, saying it would be more effective. I nearly crushed my phone. Where are you now? At the emergency room. My sister's voice was weak. Ichin scolded me for being delicate, saying that eating a loach could land me in the hospital. I'll be there right away. After hanging up the phone, I let out a cold laugh. What did you say in my last life again? Mom and Dad are just being dramatic, hospitalized over a tiny illness. Now it's your turn in the hospital. My sister lay on the emergency bed, her face pale. Old Mrs. Chin stood by the bed, scolding, young people these days can't handle any hardship at all. Back when I was pregnant with Ichin, Mom, I interrupted her. Yulan is pregnant. How could she eat raw food? Mrs. Chin glared at me. What do you know? This is all the wisdom of our ancestors. Then you should eat too. I smiled. Keep Yulan company. Mother and daughter-in-law should be of one heart. Mrs. Chin's expression changed. At my age, Mother has high blood pressure. My sister suddenly chimed in. She can't eat these things. I looked at my younger sister, and she avoided my gaze. Even now, you're still protecting your husband's family. The doctor came over to inform us that she needed to be hospitalized for observation, and old Mrs. Chin immediately started shouting, "What's there to stay in the hospital for? Isn't it just diarrhea? Go home and drink some hot water, and that'll be fine. We'll pay the hospitalization fees," I said calmly. "You don't need to worry about it." Mrs. Chin finally fell silent while they went to handle the formalities. I quietly approached the doctor on duty. "Please give her a thorough checkup, especially regarding the condition of the fetus." The doctor nodded. "And you are her brother." I handed over my business card. "If there are any issues, please contact me directly." When I got home in the evening, Mom was rummaging through the jewelry box. "What's wrong?" I asked. "The gold ring your grandmother gave me is missing," Mom said, frowning. "It was there yesterday." We both thought of my younger sister at the same time. "No way." My voice was hoarse. "She already stole the bangle last time." Mom said nothing and took out her phone to call my younger sister. "Yulan, have you seen Mom's gold ring?" There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the line. "Mom, why do you blame me for everything?" My younger sister suddenly raised her voice. "You leave things lying around and then blame other people." Mom had the phone on speaker, and we could all hear Grandma Chen's voice in the background. "Exactly, she didn't put things away and still blames the pregnant woman. The inside of the ring is engraved with my name." Mom's voice trembled. "Wouldn't it be inappropriate for your mother-in-law to wear it?" The call was abruptly disconnected. Mother slumped in the chair, tears streaming down her face. "That was given to her by Grandma on her deathbed. It was stolen in our previous life too, but we didn't pursue it back then." Dad quietly walked over and put his arm around Mom's shoulder. "I'll go get it back." I stood up. "Right now, no need." Mom wiped away her tears. "Let her take it." I looked at her, puzzled. "Wait until she personally hands it over to that old woman," Mom sneered. "It'll be even more interesting then." I suddenly understood there is a mark on the ring, and Mrs. Chin would definitely show it off. Evidence. We need more evidence. The next day, I made an excuse to go to the hospital to deliver clean clothes. My sister was lying in bed playing with her phone, and Granny Chin wasn't there. Feeling better, I put the bag down without looking up. My sister replied, "Yeah." I caught a glimpse of the gold ring on her left ring finger. That was my grandmother's. How dare she wear it openly? "New ring?" I asked on purpose. My sister instinctively covered her hand. "A friend gave it to me. It looks quite nice." I smiled. "A bit like Mom's." "What nonsense are you talking?" My sister suddenly became agitated. "This is my own." I nodded and didn't ask further. Before leaving, I paused for a moment at the nurse's station. "Lu Yulan in bed 3, I said to the nurse. "If there's any situation, please call this number." I left my own number, not my sister's. The nurse glanced at it. "Shouldn't we contact her husband? He's busy with work," I said with a bitter smile, "and often can't answer the phone." The nurse nodded knowingly. On the way home, I received a call from Beijing. "The test results for your sister are out." She lowered her voice. "There is indeed an issue with the fetus." "I know," I said. "Super male syndrome." "Not only that," Beijing paused. "There's also developmental delay, and possibly a heart defect." I gripped my phone tightly. "Can it be treated?" "She'll need surgery immediately after birth," Beijing said, "but the success rate isn't high." After thanking her, I hung up the phone. My chest tight with discomfort, the tragedy we desperately tried to prevent in our past life. In this life we have to watch helplessly as it happens. When I got home, Dad was sorting through a stack of files. "What is this?" I picked one up. "It's Chin Chen's case files." Dad said coldly, There are 6 cases he handled that involved improper procedures. As I went through them, one line stood out in particular: forging the parties' signatures and embezzling compensation. That's enough to send him to prison, I said softly. Is the evidence solid? Dad nodded. I hired a private investigator. Mom came out of the kitchen holding a notebook. I've written down everything that was stolen. She handed me the notebook, starting from when she was 18. I opened to the first page, densely packed with entries. 2021 3/15 1 gold necklace, from Grandma. 2021 5 2,500 yuan in cash, from my wallet. 2021 7 8 jade bangle, family heirloom. The latest one is from yesterday, gold ring, Grandma's keepsake. She has always been like this. Mom's voice was terrifyingly calm. It's just that we used to always forgive her. I closed the notebook. I won't forgive them again. That evening, the family group chat suddenly exploded. My aunt-in-law at me. Shwani, is that secret recipe for having a son really reliable? Your younger sister-in-law's mother-in-law is telling everyone about it. I replied, it's a folk remedy. It may not be suitable for everyone. Then I privately messaged Bai Jing. Can you help me make a fake nutrition plan? Something that looks like it was prescribed by an old Chinese medicine practitioner. 10 minutes later, she sent me a document. I forwarded it to my sister. I specially found this secret recipe from an old Chinese medicine practitioner for you. It's more effective than loach. My sister replied instantly, thanks, bro. My mother-in-law says you're the reliable one. I smiled and turned off my phone. Go ahead and eat. The more you eat, the bigger the problem for the child. By the time you discover it, it will already be too late. At 3 in the morning, the ringtone pierced the night sky. Your younger sister is about to give birth. Chen Yichen's voice was filled with panic. Come to the hospital quickly. I glanced at the time. It was 2 weeks earlier than in my previous life. Isn't she not due yet? I pretended to be surprised. Cut the nonsense. He hung up after shouting. I took my time getting dressed and washing up, and even ate a slice of bread before heading out. In my previous life, our whole family rushed to the hospital in the early hours of the morning and waited 8 hours outside the maternity ward. This time around, let them wait first. Outside the maternity ward at United Family Hospital, old Madam Chen was shouting at the nurse. Must have a natural delivery. She waved her skinny arms. Babies born by C-section aren't smart. Nurse Bai Jing replied calmly. The fetus is in the wrong position. The doctor recommends a C-section. Nonsense, old Madam Chen said, spitting as she spoke. When I gave birth to Yichen, he was also in the wrong position, and I still delivered naturally, didn't I? I quietly stepped into the corner and pressed the recorder in my pocket. When Chen Yichen saw me, he rushed over at once. Is there something wrong with your family's genes? How did your water break early? I stared at him. Did you work overtime again last night? His eyes flickered. What's it to you? Of course it's my business. In her previous life, her younger sister's water broke early because she discovered he was cheating, and the emotional shock triggered it. The delivery room door suddenly opened, and a doctor hurried out. The mother is hemorrhaging heavily. She needs a blood transfusion and surgery immediately. Family member, please sign here. Old Mrs. Chen snatched the consent form away at once. No blood transfusion. The doctor was stunned. What? Transfusing someone else's blood will contaminate my grandson's bloodline, old Mrs. Chen declared with conviction. There are traditions in our hometown. The doctor's face turned ashen. Without a blood transfusion, the mother will die. Then it still can't be done, old Mrs. Chen said resolutely. Save the child first. I looked at Chen Yichen, and he actually nodded in agreement. Listen to my mom. The doctor turned to me. And you are the mother's brother. I handed over the documents I had prepared long ago. I have her medical power of attorney. Old Madam Chen shrieked as she lunged at me. Who do you think you are? I dodged easily and said to the doctor, do everything you can to save my sister. If she needs a blood transfusion, give her one. If she needs surgery, do the surgery. Chen Yichen grabbed my collar. That's my wife. Then you're just going to watch her die. I sneered. Bai Jing chimed in at the right moment. If we keep delaying, we may lose both the mother and the baby. Only then did Granny Chen reluctantly step aside. After the operating room door closed, I pretended to go to the restroom but actually made my way to the nurse's station. How is the situation? I asked Bai Jing. She lowered her voice. It's very critical. The fetal heart rate is unstable, and the mother is losing too much blood. Prepare for the worst. I handed her a USB drive. I want the surgical records and the surveillance footage. Bai Jing hesitated for a moment and took the USB drive. What are you, to protect? My sister, I said without changing my expression, just in case. 5 hours later, the operating room light went out, the doctor walked out tiredly. Mother and child are safe, but the baby needs to go to the NICU. Mrs. Chen squeezed to the front. It's a boy. Right, the doctor nodded, but the baby shows obvious traits of XYY syndrome, and also has congenital heart disease. Nonsense, Mrs. Chen shrieked. My grandson is perfectly healthy. The doctor was too lazy to argue. The mother needs rest and cannot have visitors for now. Old Madam Chen grabbed the doctor. Take me to see my grandson first. I took the chance to slip into the ward. My younger sister lay on the bed, her face deathly pale. When she saw me, tears immediately streamed down her face. Brother, her voice was weak. Is the baby healthy? I was silent for a moment. The doctor said it's XYY syndrome. My younger sister closed her eyes, tears sliding down from the corners of them. Chen, did you see it? He went with mother-in-law to see the child. I said on purpose, looking very anxious. My younger sister suddenly grabbed my hand. Bro, I'm scared. At this moment in my previous life, I was so heartbroken I couldn't say a word. Now, I simply gently pulled my hand back. Rest. I'll go check on the child. Outside the NICU, old Madam Chen was pressing against the glass window to look inside. The child was placed in an incubator, with tubes all over his body. The doctor said surgery is needed, Chen said with a grim expression. And it may cost more than 100,000. Old Madam Chen suddenly turned around and glared at me fiercely. It's all because of your family's genes. I almost laughed out loud. Weren't you the ones who insisted on having this baby? Bullshit. Old Madam Chen spat as she spoke. It must be the hospital's mistake. My grandson is fine. The doctor walked over. The child needs immediate heart surgery. Please make a decision as soon as possible. Old Madam Chen grabbed Chen and pulled him along. Come on, we're going to another hospital for a checkup. The doctor stopped them. The child can't be moved right now. Get out of the way. Old Mrs. Chen shoved the doctor aside. I'm taking my grandson to a major hospital in the provincial capital. I quietly stepped back and recorded everything on my phone. After they finished causing a scene and left, I went to find the attending physician. What's the success rate of the surgery? I asked directly. The doctor sighed. Less than 50%. And even if successful, the quality of life afterward will be very poor. I nodded. Please do your best. I'll guarantee the expenses. It wasn't out of kindness. It would be this child who would become the Chen family's eternal nightmare. 3 days later, once her sister could get out of bed, she went to see the baby at the first opportunity in the NICU. She looked at the tiny infant through the glass, tears streaming down her face. How could this happen? She murmured. I stood behind her. The doctor mentioned the risks, sister-in-law said. My sister's voice trembled, said it's because my womb is useless. I sneered. Didn't she say it was the hospital's mistake? My sister suddenly turned around and grabbed my arm. Brother, can mom and dad lend me some money? The doctor said the baby needs surgery. I gently withdrew my hand. Didn't your mother-in-law say she would take him to the provincial capital? My sister's face grew even paler. They went home yesterday, saying they would come back once the baby is stable, leaving the new mother and newborn behind to go home. That's even worse than in my previous life. Yulan, I said calmly, do you remember what you said the day mom and dad had their heart attacks? She looked at me blankly. You said, karma has come. My younger sister's pupils suddenly contracted. Now, I turned and walked away. Karma has arrived. 2 weeks later, my sister was discharged from the hospital and forced to return to the Chen family with her sick infant. When I went to visit, old Mrs. Chen was shouting at my sister, you can't even give birth to a healthy child. She pointed at my sister's nose. And you still have the nerve to eat. The younger sister was holding the incessantly crying baby, her eye sockets deeply sunken, gaunt and emaciated. And Mom, she said hoarsely, the baby is hungry, then let him starve to death. Mrs. Chen spat, a money-wasting thing. I stood at the doorway and quietly recorded with my phone. Chen came out of the inner room and, when he saw me, his expression changed. What are you here for? Just to see my nephew, I said, shaking the can of powdered milk in my hand, and to bring some food. Old Madam Chen snatched the powdered milk away. Who knows whether you have any good intentions? My younger sister suddenly knelt down. Grandma, the baby is really hungry. This scene was so similar to what I had seen in my previous life in front of my parents' memorial hall. Only this time, The one kneeling was my younger sister. Old Madam Chen let out a cold snort and threw down a can of milk powder. Eat sparingly. As I turned to leave, my younger sister ran after me. Bro, she grabbed the hem of my shirt. Can you lend me some money? I turned back to look at her. What do you need it for? For the baby, formula, and my medicine. Her voice grew softer and softer. Chen said, all the money has gone to the child's medical treatment. I took out my wallet and pulled out 200 yuan bills. My younger sister's eyes lit up, and she reached out to take them, but I pulled them back again. Do you still remember Mom's ring? Her expression changed. What ring? The one Grandma gave me, I said slowly. Has the character Lu engraved on the inside? My younger sister let go of my sleeve. I don't know, Mrs. Chen was wearing it. I smiled. At last week's family gathering, everyone saw it. My younger sister staggered back. Grandma said it was given by her family. It's okay. I stuffed the money back into my pocket. Mom said to just take it as feeding the dog anyway. My sister's face turned as white as a sheet. When I got home, Mom was organizing photo albums. Did you see her? She asked without looking up. I nodded. She's so thin she's barely recognizable. Mom flipped to a page and pointed at my sister's high school graduation photo. She was so beautiful back then. In the photo, my sister's smile was radiant, her eyes full of light. Now, those same eyes are filled with nothing but despair. The Chen family is starting to dislike the child, I said as I sat down. Chen seems to have cheated again, Mom sneered. Who is it this time? The new intern at the company. I opened my phone to show her the photo. Only 19 years old. Mom closed the photo album. Keep all the evidence. I'm already sorting it out, I said, opening the computer. By the way, I've also gotten the child's medical records. Mom suddenly asked, do you hate her? I thought for a moment. No. Why? Because it wasn't worth it, I said calmly. She was just a stupid stranger. Dad came out of the study, holding a document in his hand. Here's the evidence that Chen misappropriated client funds. He handed it to me, enough to put him in prison for 5 years. I took the document. When should we use it? When he becomes a father for the second time, Dad sneered. Let his wife and child watch him go to prison. Mom suddenly laughed. First, he'd need to have enough money to marry another one. We exchanged a knowing smile. My sister's phone rang late at night. Bro, her voice trembled. The baby has been crying and fussing all night again. I glanced at the time. It was 2 a.m. At this time in my previous life, my parents were desperately seeking medical help and medicine for her child everywhere. Go to the hospital, I said, turning over. What's the use of calling me? From the other end of the phone came a piercing sound of crying and shouting, along with Mrs. Chen's curses. You little beast, cry again and I'll beat you to death. Then came a sharp slap, and the child's crying stopped abruptly. My younger sister gasped. Mother-in-law, shut up. Mrs. Chen's roar was so loud I could hear it clearly on my end. It's all because of the good son you raised. The call was suddenly disconnected. I stared at the phone screen, the corners of my mouth curling up unconsciously. Typical symptoms of XYY syndrome. Emotional outbursts and aggressive behavior. The show has just begun. Early the next morning, Bai Jing sent a message. Your nephew was taken to the emergency room last night with a scalp laceration. The police have been notified. I immediately called her. What happened? Your brother-in-law hit him with an ashtray, Bai Jing said in a low voice. The child is only 2 months old. I gripped my phone tightly. How serious are the injuries? They stitched it up with 5 stitches. Bai Jing paused for a moment. Even the nurse cried. When I rushed to the hospital, my younger sister was holding the child in the corner of the emergency room. The child had gauze wrapped around his head, his little face pale. My younger sister looked up and saw me, and tears instantly streamed down her face. Bro, I walked over, and the child suddenly opened his eyes, those eyes full of ferocity. Only 2 months old, yet his gaze was like that of a thug. Where is Chen? I asked. My younger sister shrank her neck. He went to work. Did you call the police? She shook her head vigorously. We can't call the police. He's the child's father. I sneered. Your son needed 5 stitches on his head, and you say we can't call the police? My sister hugged her child tightly. Mother-in-law said, family scandals shouldn't be aired in public. I took out my phone and snapped a few photos of the injury on the child's head. What are you doing? My sister panicked, trying to block me. Keep it as a memento. I put away my phone, to show him when he grows up. My sister suddenly grabbed my hand. Brother, could you lend me some money? Borrowing money again. In my past life, how many times did she borrow money? and not once did she ever pay it back. What is it for? The baby needs special formula. Her voice grew softer and softer. The doctor said, it helps with emotions. I looked at her bruised arms. Did Chen do that? She instinctively pulled down her sleeves to cover them. No, I accidentally bumped into something. I nodded, took out my wallet, and pulled out 500 yuan. My younger sister's eyes lit up, and she reached out to take it, but I pulled the money back. Write an IOU. She froze. What, an IOU? I repeated. State the loan date and purpose. My sister's face changed. I'm your own little sister. Even brothers must settle accounts clearly. I smiled. Or are you saying you never intended to pay it back? She bit her lip and, in the end, took the money and wrote a hastily scrawled IOU. I took a photo of the IOU and sent it to the family group chat. Dad replied instantly. Remember to have her put her thumbprint on it. Mom added, calculate the interest according to the bank rate. My younger sister looked at her phone, her face deathly pale. How can you do this? How? I asked back. Wasn't it you who wanted to borrow money? She clutched the child and staggered away, her hunched back looking like that of a little old woman at just 21. She looked 40. On the way home, I took a detour to Chen's law firm. The receptionist saw me and her eyes lit up. Mr. Liu, you're Xiao Su, right? I smiled and handed over an exquisite gift box. Thanks for your help last time. She looked around and quickly accepted the gift box. Attorney Chen has been in a very bad mood lately, because of what's going on at home. I lowered my voice. Xiao Su nodded. His mom scolds his wife every day, and the kid keeps crying. Does he have any other friends? I hinted as Xiao Su gave a mysterious smile. The intern Xiao Lin brings him breakfast every day. My heart skipped a beat. Can you do me a favor? 10 minutes later, I obtained the contact information of the intern, Lin Niao. That evening, I invited her for coffee under the guise of being Chen's friend. Lawyer Chen often mentions you, I said with a smile. He says you're very talented. Lin Niao blushed. Lawyer Chen is very kind. He's had a lot going on at home lately. I sighed. His wife and kids have all been giving him trouble. Lin Niao perked up immediately. That kid seems to have a problem, Lawyer Chen said. She suddenly fell silent. What did he say? I encouraged her to continue. Say, he wants a divorce. But no one wants the child, she said softly. I nodded. Actually, Chen is such a great catch. He should have found a girl like you long ago. Lin Niao's eyes lit up. Really? Lawyer Chen said the same thing too. I smiled and handed her a card. There's 100,000 in here. Help me with something. 3 days later, my sister suddenly ran home crying. There was a clear slap mark on her face, and her arms were covered in bruises. Mom, she threw herself into our mother's arms. Chen wants a divorce. Mom gently pushed her away. What happened? He's seeing someone else. My sister sobbed uncontrollably, and he even said I should compensate him for emotional damages. Emotional damages? I almost burst out laughing. Why? Dad asked, pretending to be concerned. My younger sister sobbed. He said I gave birth to an unhealthy child, and caused losses to their family. Mom suddenly laughed. Yulan, do you remember what you said the day your dad had his accident? My younger sister looked up blankly. You said, karma has come. My sister trembled all over. Mom, I was wrong. Help me. How can I help? I asked. Lend me money. Hire a good lawyer. She grabbed Mom's hand. Chen said, it'll take 500,000. Dad suddenly stood up. I'll go get something. When he returned, he held a document folder in his hand. Here is evidence that Chen embezzled client funds, he said calmly, enough to put him in prison for 5 years. His sister's eyes lit up, and she reached out to take it, but their father withdrew the folder. But you must promise me one thing. What is it? My younger sister asked anxiously. Divorce him, and let him keep the child. My younger sister's expression changed. How can that be? The baby needs its mother. Then keep getting beaten, I sneered, and while you're at it, help him pay off his debts. My younger sister suddenly knelt down. Dad, Mom, please. Mom turned and went into the kitchen. Dad went upstairs to the study. I sat on the sofa, watching my younger sister kneeling on the floor. Yulan, I said softly, do you still remember Mom's ring? She looked up, her eyes full of tears. I remember. Is Mrs. Chen still wearing it? She nodded. Go ask for it back, I said, and then I'll help you. My younger sister bit her lip. Grandma won't give it back. Then there's nothing I can do, I said with a shrug. You chose this path yourself. You'll have to finish it even if you have to kneel your way through it. My younger sister suddenly stood up, her eyes turning fierce. You just can't stand to see me doing well, the same line as in my past life. Of course we hope you're doing well, I smiled, especially like you are now. My younger sister stormed out. I immediately messaged Lin Yao, we can start now. The next day, Chen Yichen's social media account suddenly posted an update, finally found true love, but unfortunately bound by marriage. The post was accompanied by an intimate photo of him and Lin Yao. My sister frantically called me. Bro, did you see Yichen's social media post? I saw it, I said calmly. They look quite well matched. How can you say that? She screamed. I'm his wife. Then go find him. I sneered. Why are you yelling at us? There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone, followed by a suppressed sob. Brother, what should I do? Get a divorce, I said bluntly, before he beats you to death. But the baby, you can't bear to part with the child, I interrupted her. Or is it the identity of Mrs. Chen you can't let go of? My sister fell silent. In her past life, she hesitated just like this, until Chen Yichen broke two of her ribs. Yulan, I suddenly asked, if time could be reversed, would you still insist on giving birth to this child? There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Yes, she finally said. I hung up the phone, turned on the computer, and created a new document in the revenge folder, Sister's Choice. There was only one line of text inside. She deserved it. A week later, my younger sister appeared at the door with bruises all over her face. Yichen filed for divorce, her voice hoarse, and wants me to pay 200,000. I looked at her swollen eyes. The judge won't support that, but Mom said, if I don't give her the money. My younger sister was trembling all over. She'll tell the whole village that I gave birth to a freak. I almost laughed out loud. At a time like this, she still cared about saving face. What are you planning to do? I asked. I was thinking, she bit her lip, could Mom and Dad transfer the apartment to me first? So that's what it was, that apartment that had been sold long ago. And then, I asked, I can mortgage the apartment to pay off the debt. Her voice grew softer as she spoke. And then when I have money later, I can buy it back and return it to Mom and Dad. I finished for her. She nodded, a glimmer of hope shining in her eyes. Yulan, I said softly, that apartment was sold last year. My younger sister looked as if struck by lightning. What, sold to Uncle? I smiled. For 2 million, in cash. My younger sister's face instantly turned deathly pale. You, how could you? How can I not? Dad walked down from upstairs. It's my house, I can sell it if I want. My sister staggered back. Then what about me? Figure it out yourself. Mom came out of the kitchen. Just like you said, karma has come. My sister stood at the door, her gaze shifting from despair to resentment. I hate you, she screamed. I will never forgive you for the rest of my life. As she turned and ran away, I noticed she was clutching something in her hand. Later, when we took inventory, we discovered that a pair of my mother's pearl earrings was missing. In her past life, she stole bracelets. In this life, she steals earrings. A dog will always return to its vomit. I called Lin Yao. We can proceed to the next step. That afternoon, a report accusing Chen Yichen of misappropriating client funds appeared on the Bar Association's official website. At the same time, he received a text message on his phone. Your wife reported it, and the evidence is solid. Sender, unknown number. The doorbell rang at 4 in the morning. Through the peephole, I saw my sister standing outside holding her child, with 2 shabby suitcases at her feet. Her left eye was so swollen she couldn't open it, and there was a scab of blood at the corner of her mouth. I slowly took a sip of water before opening the door. Brother, she burst into tears as soon as she spoke. They kicked me out. I stepped aside to let her in, the child in her arms letting out a beast-like howl. 3-year-old Chen Zhengwo was already a head taller than children his age, with a ferocity on his face that didn't belong to his years. Shut up. My sister reflexively covered the child's mouth. The child bit down hard on her hand, and blood immediately gushed out. I watched coldly, offering no help. In my past life, this child pushed my mother down the stairs, causing a hip fracture. Just when my younger sister finally managed to free her hands, the child started banging his head against the wall again. Thud, thud, thud. The sound was especially jarring. In the dead silence of early dawn, could we stay here for a few days? My sister asked, her voice trembling. We'll move out as soon as we find a place. I glanced at the suitcase behind her. There was still bloodstains on the corner of the suitcase. Did Chen Yichen hit you? My sister nodded, tears mingling with blood as they dripped onto the ground. Is the divorce finalized? The judgment just came down yesterday, she sobbed. I got custody of the child, but he won't pay a single cent In child support, I chuckled softly. Weren't you supposed to compensate him for emotional damages? My sister's face turned even paler. The judge dismissed it. I turned and walked toward the kitchen. The guest room is on the second floor. Make yourself at home. As my sister dragged her suitcase through the living room, the child suddenly broke free from her and lunged toward the fruit knife on the coffee table. Jangwo, my sister screamed, rushing to stop him. The child had already grabbed the knife and slashed it across her face. A streak of blood immediately appeared on her cheek. I stood still in place. In my previous life, this child had used scissors to poke out the neighbor's dog's eye. My younger sister finally snatched the knife away, and the child started rolling on the floor and screaming. The noise was loud enough to wake the dead. The door to my parents' bedroom opened. Mom stood at the top of the stairs, looking at the scene with a blank expression. Mom, my sister, knelt on the ground, holding her child. Save us. Mother turned and went back to her room. I followed upstairs and heard my parents whispering, let her stay for a few days. Dad asked, 3 days. Mother's voice was icy. Then get rid of them. I nodded and returned to my room, taking out several miniature cameras from the drawer. Half an hour later, the living room, kitchen, and hallway were all set up. Early the next morning, I was awakened by the child's screams. When I went downstairs, my sister was rummaging through the kitchen cabinets. What are you looking for? I asked. She was startled. Baby is hungry. I opened the refrigerator, took out a carton of milk, and tossed it to her. The child snatched it and poured it straight into his mouth, milk spilling all over the floor. My younger sister frantically wiped it up, and I noticed fresh bruises on her wrist. Did he hit you again? My sister instinctively pulled down her sleeve. No, it was the baby. I gave a cold laugh. He inherited it from his dad. My younger sister said nothing and kept her head down as she continued wiping the floor. When Mom came downstairs, my younger sister immediately went up to her. Mom, could you lend me some money? Mom walked past her and headed straight for the coffee machine. Just 5,000. My younger sister followed behind. The baby needs a special school. Mom poured a cup of coffee and finally spoke. Do you remember what you said the day your dad had the accident? My younger sister froze in place. Mom took out her phone and played a recording. Mom, look, karma has come, right? Who told them to try to hurt my son? My younger sister's own voice, clear and piercing. The recording played 3 times in a loop before Mom finally turned it off. Now, she took a sip of coffee. Karma has come. My younger sister collapsed onto the floor, and the child was tugging at the sofa cushion beside her. Cotton stuffing was flying everywhere. When Dad came downstairs, he stepped right over the mother and child on the floor, picked up the newspaper, and sat down at the dining table. Dad, my younger sister crawled to Dad's feet. Please, Dad put down the newspaper. The case of Chinny Chen embezzling funds will go to trial next week. My younger sister's eyes lit up. Will he go to jail? He would have, Dad said leisurely, if no one had helped him give false testimony. My younger sister's expression changed. What, false testimony? He came to see me yesterday, Dad said, staring at my younger sister. He said that if you're willing to testify that you took the money, he'll let you go back. My younger sister's breathing quickened. You agreed? I asked. She didn't answer, but her expression said it all. Dad smiled. Go ahead, go find him now. Sister couldn't believe it. Really? Dad nodded. But if you get kicked out again, don't come back. Sister immediately jumped up, dragging the child and running out, not even bothering with the luggage. Mother watched her retreating figure and sneered. She'll be back within 3 days. I opened my phone and launched the surveillance app. Recording has already started. 3 days later, my sister indeed returned. This time, she looked even more disheveled, with a large bruise on her forehead and a noticeable limp as she walked. The child is missing. Where is Jangwo? I asked. Chen took him, she said, her eyes darting around. He said he missed his son. I understood immediately. Chinny Chen only wanted the child, not her. How many days will you stay? I asked deliberately. My sister lowered her head. I'll move out once I find a job. I stepped aside to let her in, noticing she was clutching a plastic bag tightly in her hand. At night, I pulled up the surveillance footage. After we all fell asleep, my sister sneaked into the kitchen. She took a small bottle out of a plastic bag and poured something into the kettle. Then she carefully placed the kettle back in its original spot. I immediately called Bai Jing. Can you help me test a water sample? The next morning before breakfast, I accidentally knocked over the water kettle. I'll go buy a new one. I stood up and take the water sample for testing while I'm at it. Mom nodded and took a bottle of mineral water from the fridge to drink. My sister's gaze followed me until I walked out the door. Beijing's test results came out in the afternoon. Cyanide, she said, her voice trembling over the phone. Enough to kill a cow. I smiled. Perfect. When I got home, my younger sister rushed up to me anxiously. Bro, why were you gone so long? I shook the new thermos in my hand. I also made a quick stop at the insurance company. My sister's eyes lit up. What kind of insurance? Accident insurance, I said with a smile. Coverage of 5 million, with direct family members as the beneficiaries. My younger sister's pupils suddenly contracted. In her previous life, she did exactly that, bought high-value insurance for the whole family, then poisoned them. Why do you suddenly want to buy insurance? Her voice trembled. Better safe than sorry, I said, patting her on the shoulder. Bring mom and dad to handle it tomorrow. My younger sister was restless all night, constantly checking her phone. Late at night, the surveillance footage showed her drugging the new water kettle again. This time, I swapped out the water sample in advance and preserved the evidence. On the third day, I pretended to have a stomachache and skipped breakfast. The parents also happened not to have drunk any water. My younger sister was so anxious that she kept circling around, constantly urging us to drink water. Mom, your lips are all dry, she said, holding a cup of water and chasing after her mother. Have some water. Mom pushed the cup away. I'm not thirsty. My younger sister's hands started to tremble. That noon, I suddenly got a call saying I had to go on a business trip. I'll be back in a week, I said to my younger sister as I packed my bags. Take good care of mom and dad. Her face turned deathly pale. Do you have to leave right now? Work, I smiled. By the way, there's cash in the drawer of my room. Take it if you need it. My sister's eyes lit up. After leaving the house, I went straight to the cafe in the building across the street and opened my phone's surveillance app. In less than 10 minutes, my sister slipped into my room and rummaged through the drawer for the money. Then she started going through my files and found that insurance policy. She took a photo of the policy and sent it to a number. The contact name was husband. I sneered. Still in touch with Chen. At night, the surveillance camera captured my sister making a phone call. None of them drank. She whispered, lowering her voice. Brother seems suspicious. Chen's roar came from the other end of the line, and my sister shrank back. Just a few more days, she pleaded. I'm sure it will work. After hanging up the phone, she slumped onto the bed, her gaze gradually turning fierce. At breakfast the next day, her sister tried a different approach. Mom, I made some congee, she said eagerly, bringing out a pot of plain rice porridge. Try some. Mom glanced at the porridge. Not hungry. My sister turned to Dad again. Dad, you love porridge the most. Dad kept his head down reading the newspaper. No appetite today. My sister's hand began to tremble, and the spoon clinked crisply against the edge of the bowl. I watched all of this through the surveillance feed, a smile curling at the corners of my mouth. That afternoon, my younger sister suddenly said the child had a fever and that she was taking him back to care for him. Go, Mom said without even looking up, and don't come back. My younger sister froze in place. Mom, take your poisonous porridge and get out, Mom said calmly. My younger sister's face went instantly pale. Why you knew. Dad lowered the newspaper. Knew what? My younger sister turned and ran, not even taking her luggage. I rushed home at once and found the remaining poison and the phone in her room. The phone wasn't locked, and I easily found the chat records between her and Chen. The old geezers refused to drink it. Useless. Keep thinking of a way. They seem to have discovered it. Then let's just do it. 5 million in insurance money is enough for us to start over. The last one was sent today. I'm going back tonight. Pretend to be asleep. I'll smother them to death with a pillow. I took screenshots to save all the records and then called the police. The police arrived quickly, and I provided the surveillance footage and the poison sample. This is premeditated murder, the officer said seriously. We need to arrest her immediately. I shook my head. Wait one more day. I want to make her and Chen turn against each other. That night, surveillance footage captured Chen sneaking into the house. His sister was waiting for him in the living room. Are you crazy? Why are you here now? I can't wait any longer, Chen said through gritted teeth. That money has to be repaid next week, or I'm finished. But, no buts. Chen grabbed his sister by the neck. We must deal with them tonight. I sneered in front of the surveillance monitor. In my past life, you caused my parents' death. In this life, I will watch you tear each other apart. Chen and his sister groped their way upstairs in the dark. Arriving in front of their parents' bedroom, the door suddenly swung open. and the lights blazed on. Their parents stood perfectly fine at the doorway. "Good evening," Dad smiled. "Looking for this?" He shook the insurance policy in his hand. Chin-Chen's face turned pale. "You? 5 million, Mom sneered, enough to buy both of your lives." My sister suddenly knelt down. Dad, he forced me." Chin-Chen kicked her in the back. "Bitch, it was your idea in the first place." The two of them fought each other, and the child woke up, starting to scream and smash things. I sat in front of the surveillance monitor and pressed the record button. I pressed the send button and posted the last surveillance video to the family group chat. In the frame, the younger sister is pouring white powder into the kettle. Her movements as practiced as if she's done it countless times. The phone immediately exploded. "Uncle, is this crazy girl poisoning someone?" "Aunt, oh my god, have you called the police?" "Cousin, do you know that old woman from the Chin family?" I didn't reply and put my phone on silent. In the living room, Chin-Chen and my younger sister were still tearing into each other like dogs. "It was your idea." Chin-Chen grabbed his sister by the hair. "You said that if we poisoned them, we could get the insurance money." The younger sister screamed as she scratched his face. "It was obviously you who told me to pay the money back." The parents sat on the sofa, coldly watching this farce unfold. The child sat on the floor, crazily banging his head against the wall, letting out beast-like howls. I quietly dialed 110 and hid the phone in my pocket. "Enough." Dad suddenly slammed the table and stood up. The living room fell silent in an instant. "You really think we didn't know?" Dad sneered. "We found out from the first time Yulon poisoned us." My younger sister's face turned deathly pale. Then you were waiting," Mom said calmly, "waiting for you to reveal your true colors." Chin-Chen's eyes began darting around as he slowly edged toward the door. I blocked the doorway and waved my phone. "The police will be here soon." My younger sister suddenly dropped to her knees with a thud. Dad, I was wrong. He forced me." She pointed at Chin-Chen, her face smeared with tears and snot. Chin-Chen kicked her in the shoulder. "Nonsense, you wanted to keep the insurance payout for yourself." The doorbell rang. I opened the door, and 2 police officers were standing outside. "Who called the police?" "I did." I raised my phone. "I have evidence of attempted murder." Chin-Chen turned to jump out the window but was pinned to the ground by the police. My sister collapsed to the floor, trembling all over. "It wasn't me, it wasn't me." When the police handcuffed her too, she suddenly looked up at me, her eyes filled with resentment. "Lu Xuani, I hope you die a miserable death." Exactly the same words she had spoken in front of our parents' memorial hall in my previous life. Smiling, I took out another phone and played a recording. "Mom and Dad deserve to die. Who told them to try to harm my son?" Her own voice echoed in the living room. Her face instantly lost all color. This isn't what I said." When the police took them away, the neighbors all came out to watch. Old Mrs. Chin rushed over upon hearing the news, just in time to see her son being escorted into the police car. "Damn you," she lunged at me, trying to scratch me. "You framed my son." I easily dodged and sent the surveillance video to her phone. "It was your daughter-in-law who poisoned you." I smiled. "Your son ordered it." Mrs. Chin watched the video, her expression growing increasingly grim. Suddenly, she turned and slapped her sister across the face. "You wretch, you harmed my son." The police quickly pulled her away. My sister suddenly lunged at Granny Chen like a madwoman. "You old hag, you forced me into this." The two of them wrestled fiercely, while the child screamed nearby. The scene was as chaotic as a hellish painting. The next day, I went to the police station to give my statement. The police told me that my younger sister and Chin-Chen had accused each other, and the evidence was conclusive. "That old lady is still causing a scene," the police officer said, shaking his head. "She says she's going to sue your whole family." I laughed. "Sue us for what?" "She says nobody's taking care of her grandson anymore." I took out the file I had prepared long ago. "This is the contact information for the Children's Welfare Institution. This child has violent tendencies and needs a specialized facility." On my way out, I ran into Chin-Chen's lawyer. "Mr. Liu." He stopped me. "Mr. Chen is willing to reach a settlement." "A settlement?" I raised an eyebrow. "He ordered my younger sister to murder our parents. How is that supposed to be settled?" The lawyer lowered his voice. "Mr. Chen can testify that your sister was the mastermind." I burst out laughing and turned to leave. "In my previous life, you did exactly that. Pushed all the blame onto my sister and walked away clean." "Not this time." A week later, my parents sold the house. "Go to Hainan," Dad announced at the dinner table. "We leave next Monday." I nodded. "I've already made all the arrangements." Mom hesitated a little. As for Yulan's side, she's an adult, I said calmly. She made her own choice, and she must bear the consequences. On the day of the trial, our whole family went. When my sister saw us, her eyes lit up, thinking we would save her. That was until the prosecutor began reading out the evidence, surveillance footage, chat records, receipts for poison purchases. The evidence is irrefutable. My sister's face grew paler and paler, until she finally collapsed in the defendant's seat. Chen Yichen didn't fare much better either. Embezzlement of public funds, incitement to murder, multiple charges combined for sentencing. When the judge pronounced the verdict, old Mrs. Chen screamed from the public gallery, "My son is innocent." The bailiffs dragged her out. The sister was sentenced to 10 years, and Chen Yichen to 12. After the verdict was announced, the sister suddenly turned to us and cried, "Mom and Dad, save me." The parents stood up and left without looking back. I walked at the end, my sister screaming and cursing me, "Lu Xuani, you'll die a horrible death." I turned back to look at her and smiled slightly. Retribution has arrived. 3 months later, we settled down in Hainan. Occasionally, we hear some news. Old Mrs. Chen took that child and went everywhere to file complaints, saying we had harmed her son, but no one paid her any attention. The child became increasingly violent. At the age of 6, he pushed a little girl down the stairs, nearly causing a fatal incident. Finally, she was forcibly sent to a mental hospital. Old Mrs. Chen couldn't bear the blow and suffered a stroke, becoming paralyzed. As for her younger sister, she didn't fare well in prison. It's said that she was often bullied and even attempted suicide twice. We didn't go to see her, just like she did to us in our previous lives. After hearing this story, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section. We look forward to hearing your voice.